What's good, everybody? Mercago. This is Khalif here. I have just finished Split Fiction, and I have to say, it is the best game that I have played in years. Let's talk about it. Split Fiction comes to us from Hazelight Studios, their fourth game, known for their cooperative masterpieces and known for mashing up really fantastic gameplay with narrative bits that really come through and bring together that human element that we really love to see. And Split Fiction nails that in spades with this game. It is, like I said in the intro, and I'm not even going to bury the lead, this is the best game that I have played in years. This game is fantastic from top to bottom. It is innovative, it is smart, it is thoughtful, and it is just one of the coolest experiences I've had in a very long time. You start the game as these two characters who are these young women who are looking to get their stories published, and they wind up going to this conglomerate, this kind of big business that is running these experiments where they're looking for folks to be able to extract story from people who are willing to put themselves in this weird and funky machine. Some hijinks ensue, and they wind up being mashed up into this one space where both of them are now sharing kind of almost one body and one kind of consciousness. It winds up being something that is not only the kind of main driver for the gameplay elements, but really does bring together an interesting layer of how you mash up genre, which are the sci-fi space and the fantasy space that they're looking to kind of both incorporate. You have Zoe, who is looking to kind of get all of her fantasy stories into the world, and you have Mio, who is way deep into the sci-fi space, and she's looking to kind of showcase some of the stories in that world. You wind up having a really cool moment in the beginning of the game where you start to see the pieces come together. You start to see the beginnings of what you think of in this kind of really, really fun co-op experience. You see the split screen that they always do. You know, you have Mio on one side kind of exploring in spaces of her liking and of her imagination. Then you have Zoe as well, thinking about how she can incorporate the fantasy space into the worlds that they have found themselves in. And they wind up sharing space across these two genres of games and genres of story. So you're bouncing between the sci-fi space and the fantasy space. Often you're kind of going through these memories of each of them and stories that they had written while going through and kind of playing through them in those kind of narrative spaces. And it's really fantastically done in terms of the ways the game manifests and showcases not only smart and interesting cooperative gameplay that balances platforming and puzzles and moments where you have to use and kind of understand where your partner are in space and navigate through these worlds to get to either the end of what you would think of as a kind of narrative plot point, or moving into these really cool secondary spaces called side stories, where you have these one-off experiences that balance between various games that we've played in the past and new experiences that you have kind of seen that are thought through from the imaginations and the memories of these two characters. They nail all of those pieces so well. I have been sitting here thinking about ways to talk about this game without showcasing and sharing spoilers. And the hardest part is not showing all the goodies that are in this game. For our review, you know, I got a chance to play this game with Cam Hawkins, you know, a person who you've seen on our show numerous times. And every time that we would go to a new level, we would be on comms and talking about what's the next thing to do and what's the next thing to kind of see. And every moment that you would go from one level to the next was something new, was something different, was something innovative, was something really smart or really fun, or a way that really challenged you to think about how can you get through these levels together in a way that never felt super, super difficult, but also felt amazingly challenging, but also was something in which you have to be on comms. Like, this is a game where you cannot play this in a way where you're not having constant communication about how you're kind of navigating through these levels. And that was a really fun experience. It was a very different one in which, I hadn't played A Way Out or It Takes Two, or I played a little bit of Brothers when it first came out, but didn't really kind of jump into it with both feet. And when I saw this at the Game Awards, the first thing I thought was, that's such a really cool idea of how do you mash up a sci-fi world and a fantasy world while you're playing together and interacting together and trying to figure out ways to balance out those play styles. But every level felt extremely different, even though you were sometimes using similar mechanics in the way that you would platform or the way that you would navigate a puzzle. Each one of those puzzles felt bespoke. Each one of those side missions felt integral to the way that you thought about playing through the rest of this game. It's funny, it's smart, it's witty, it is thoughtful in the way that it talks about some issues that the characters have in their kind of real lives in outside of those fantasy spaces, outside of those kind of metaverse spaces. And I have to look directly in the camera and talk directly to Joseph, the creative director and head of Hazelight. This is one of the smartest games I've ever played. The decisions that were made in this game to make not only the gameplay feel interesting and new and, I'd seen stuff in this game that I've never seen before from a co-op experience or from a design perspective. Like if this game doesn't win Game of the Year or is in nominations for Game of the Year, or at the very least, the best designed game of the year, I will riot. It is unreasonable for this game to not get nods about how smart, how interesting, how fun, how it flips ideas on its head, how it thinks about the way that you interact, not only from a gameplay perspective and a cooperative perspective, but how you bridge and how do you separate while also combining gameplay elements to make it feel like you're both working as a cohesive unit. It is so difficult to understand how they built this game out to really mash up all of those things and make it feel like none of it feels disparate. None of it feels like you're reaching for something that doesn't make a lot of sense and doesn't feel like they are taking things and then pulling things away. Everything feels additive in this game. Every time you get to a new level, every time you get to a new breakpoint in the story, each one of those things that you wind up doing before either are influenced by something that happened in those spaces or feels like it's building upon something that you already kind of did in a way that makes you feel smart and makes it feel like the game is paying attention to the fact that you learned something throughout the way that you kind of incorporated those pieces of gameplay into the next piece of the story. This is like mind-blowingly good. Like there aren't enough superlatives to kind of drop on this game without glowing over it and gushing over it, because it is really that good. I sat up and finished this game, and I was talking to Cam about my experiences with it and felt like, oh, this is easily one of the best games I've played this decade. This is definitely the best game I played this year by far. Again, we're only in March, but also I've played thousands of games. I've reviewed hundreds of games over the 11 years of doing Spawn on Me. And it is rare where I come from playing a game and putting the controller down and saying, that was an experience that I want everyone to have. That was an experience that I hope people cherish and people really take the time to understand how good the design is on this game. Joseph said on a podcast with MinMax that you'll see something towards the end of this game that you've never seen before. He absolutely is not lying. He is saying that, and it is something that I came across, and I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. This is ridiculously good. And it goes from timing puzzles to memes to understanding and pulling cultural things from the internet, pulling things from internet culture, pulling things from video game lore and from past games that you'll look at and you'll say, oh, I know exactly where that came from. Oh, that's a memory that I had when I played a game like this when I was a child. Oh, this is a game or an IP that really connects to this world really well and just makes sense. Split Fiction is so freaking good. It is so unreasonably good. I am begging you to go play this game. It is not that expensive. It's $50, and if you have the game, you can let somebody else play it locally or online. We played with each other, just sending an invite between each other. We both had to have the game for previews, because there's a function for Friend Pass that's in the game where one person can buy the game and basically send an invite to someone else. So we were lucky enough to get another code from PR to be able to play together to finish the review. And we'll have another discussion about the game, specifically on an upcoming episode of Spawn on Me, where we talk through our experiences. But this game is from top to bottom extraordinary. This is a fantastic game from top to bottom. There's only a couple of small drawbacks that I would say from this game that I would like to point out. One is there are some button prompts that happened throughout the game. Some of them kind of balance between the differences of holding down a button to kind of make a meter go up so that you can finish an action, and some of them are ones where you have to mash on it. Sometimes in the game, it although it does have visual prompts for some of those things, sometimes it doesn't necessarily tell you exactly which version of that you should be going through. There was one section where we thought we were supposed to mash our way through it when we were basically supposed to be hitting the button at the same time, but the prompt looked exactly the same. That's one issue that I found with the game. The other issue is that when you do die in this game, and again, difficulty isn't super difficult, but it is stuff where you're having a lot of things on the screen at the same time trying to kill you and do that. And sometimes when you wind up dying, there's a mechanic where you basically hit the button and mash your way through an octagon and basically give yourself a way to revive. But sometimes when you're doing that, you get spawned into some of the attacks that are happening from the enemies, or you're getting spawned into a part of the map where you are in limbo and there's nowhere for you to land. And sometimes those spawn points are just too fast for you to be able to react to. So that's one thing that was a little bit of a knock. But overall, between the balance of fantastic puzzles, really smart cultural tidbits that come through that are just like, oh, that was really smart and funny and interesting, two characters that really do come through on screen and have really interesting, fun stories, and just a baseline of polish and excellence that goes across this game from top to bottom, that for the 12 hours that this game occupies in your life, you are never looking for something else. You're always involved and engaged and paying attention. And when it does the kind of like moments where it ramps it up and then pulls it back down, so you have those moments of brevity, it is just like a perfectly paced game. So we're going to end out on that note. This game is a 5 out of 5 for me. This is a 10 out of 10 game. This is, again, one of the best experiences I've had playing video games in my life of playing video games, over 30 plus years of playing video games. And I have to say, massive love and massive props to Hazelight. Massive props to EA for making this game happen. Massive props to Joseph and the rest of his team, who we got a chance to meet at the preview event. And we'd love to have them on the show to talk about the game at some point. This is a must play. This is a must buy. This is the best game I've played this year, and has definitely reached my top 10 of all games lists forever and ever and ever. So thank you so much for rocking. Thank you so much for listening and paying attention and hanging out. Hopefully you'll go check out more of the streams that we're going to do for this game. Check out more of the show. Check out podcasting platforms all over the world. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those good places, YouTube as well. And we're hoping to grow our YouTube channel as well. So please go subscribe on all those spaces. And we'll have more information and more goodies coming to you very, very soon here on Spawn on Me and in the future. So thanks again to everybody, and we hope to see you soon. Much love. Peace.